I have been given the privilege of introducing the Honourable the Prime Minister, who will now speak. The Prime Minister does not need any introduction, but I also need to say that I have personally been at the other end of the table when he was speaking, although I have never met him before. And I reported on a little bit of what he said at given fora. Just a little bit of retrospective information. Our Prime Minister now was originally in the J.R. Jayawardena government, and he has been with us since then. He holds the mantle of the Prime Minister of this country, which is not an easy job. Ladies and gentlemen, our Honourable the Prime Minister.
President of the Planters Society, Honourable Ministers, the other office bearers of the Planters Society, distinguished guests and friends. First, I must thank you for accommodating me and make it possible for me to leave here a bit early. It's not only I who have to leave this assembly, but the Minister for Plantation Industries and the Minister of Media, because we have to attend a meeting of the government parliament. But I had to look at a time when all of us were going to be in Colombo. When you asked me to fix a time, and I thought this was the best, because this is the week in which the party celebrates its 70th anniversary. Therefore, all ministers were required, or the UMP ministers, were required to be in Colombo for the functions. And I thought, and I wanted to start off the week with your meeting, because from tomorrow onwards, our own party functions take over. The Planters Society is holding its annual general meeting at a time when the future of the plantations are being discussed. A crisis in the plantation sector is not something new to us. We are not strangers to it. But we meet because there are multiple issues. Firstly is the long downturn of commodity prices globally. And that's going to stay because the prices of oil will not increase for the coming few years. And then there are the shale gas explorations that are taking place, and I read even China is going in for shale gas. In this background, we cannot expect a rapid improvement of oil prices. Even the big oil companies are cutting back on their investments, and there are others. Unfortunately, something that we in Sri Lanka did not anticipate. On one hand, we thought that the oil prices will stay high, and therefore all our policies were geared to it. But these come in cycles. And now, when there is oversupply, when the economy doesn't perform at its full, and when the rate of growth comes down, then certainly there has to be fall in the demand for oil. And what we had to understand was that in the last few years, the Western economies were performing much below their potential. In fact, now we have negative interest rates. So it's in this background. But on the other hand, we can't put all the blame on the downflow. So while there is a global downturn, let's also look at the issues that we have to face. And what have we done to correct it? If you are looking at rubber, the rubber prices are down. But on the other hand, our COP is high. If you look at tea, our markets are gone. But there are other countries who hasn't got that problem. Because too long did we focus on the Middle East and Eastern Europe. In the last 10 years, when as Prime Minister last in 2003, we said go out, look into Europe, look into America, looking at diverse products. I come back here and sit on that chair 12 years later and find that no one has gone down. In fact, everyone seems to have gone onto the bandwagon. Russia is there, Ukraine is there, Syria is there, the Middle East is there. Now what have you got? That's where we sent our bulk, and bulk teas even. Who is to blame? Someone may say the government, the previous government. Alright, are they the only people to blame? Did the totality of the industry say, we want to move out? And on coconut, we can't make up our mind whether we want coconut or whether we want oil palm. We are a small country with a limited acreage, with a big pressure on population. So either it's got to be coconut or it's got to be oil palm. But all agricultural crops come here when it's viable. For hundreds of years we had cinnamon. Those lands were replaced by low quantity, by rubber in those areas and by coconut. So when it seems to be viable, we went to other crops. Now are we staying in these crops or not? That's what we have to decide. In my view, there's still a future for all the three crops. I won't write it off. But there are issues that we have raised. How viable are we? Why is it that we cannot pay the wages that people demand? It is not only a problem of the plantation industry. Throughout Sri Lanka, 1.5 million people are employed abroad because they couldn't get the income they expected here. $300 to $400 per month. Our industries can't afford to pay them. So this is reality. When you first have to work back on the wages to be paid. Now this is going to be a big shock for some of the companies which first look at what is the return that the stockholders are expecting. So what to do one of the two. Stockholders can get high returns, you will have no labor. So therefore you come back to the same game. So running away from one and you stumble up on the other. We will have, I think, about 10,000 acres of plantation crops will have to be cleaned up or taken out of plantation in the western province, part of Matara, Kurunagala, Kagalla and Kandy for industrial development. But I wouldn't like to write that 10,000 acres off. There are other parts of the country in which we can do replanting, whether it be coconut and rubber or tea. We started replanting in these areas. We started planting in these areas, but Western Province, Southern Province, and Kegol, Kagalla, and the rest of Wyoming are today fast developing into urban and suburban areas. So are we going to write it off? Or are we going to replant elsewhere? I think replanting is the option. But then let's get to the real core of the issue. We have smallholders. We have the private owners, the 50-acre owners, who if you run as a family, you may be holding 200 to 250 acres, and the RPCs. Earlier we had holdings which went from 25 acres to about 6,000 acres. Now we have between 50 and 22,000 it's a wide gap. Is that a good thing? Like to start with half acre and you go up gradually mosaic pattern up to 50. Then, okay, some people will put, each one will put their 50 together and try and run it. That's very few. Then all of a sudden you go to 22,000 acres and then beyond that into 44,000 acres, so on and so forth. Also, in the plantation sector, it raises the question, what is the viable amount that we can manage? In the old days, no one owned more than 5,000 or 6,000 acres. Agency houses managed it. But agency houses are not there anymore. Agency houses had a large number of planters on their board of directors. When the state corporations took over, again planters were the majority on the boards of the state plantation corporations. When we had the RPCs and handed over, it has changed. I think the 22 companies must be having about how many planters? Huh? 44? In the board of directors? That's what I'm asking you.
Less 40. Less planters.
Less planters. That big gap has come for the first time. And less members on the board know how tea is planted and more know how to put a bag of tea and make a cup of tea. The regional plantation companies are necessary. I mean, the government couldn't take on the burden. So we had the regional plantation companies and they've taken the burden off the government. Yes. But what has happened from there onwards? Some of them are really good plantation companies, I must say. Others are not. They keep changing on the stock exchange. And I had to pull up someone who said their first obligation for the stockholders. I said, no, it's not for the stockholders. It's for the industry and other stakeholders. And if you don't like, since we are changing policy, you can exit anytime you want. You won't keep anyone forcible to manage estates. Recently we had an estate in which, plantation company in which the members of the board of directors didn't speak to each other. A few are on the verge of collapse. So we have to make some changes and those changes will come. Not for the sake of making a change, but how do we go from there? So there are many issues that we have to focus on. One, of course, is the management. I don't know how many of you have read the Asian drama by the Swedish economist Gunnar Myrdal, who wrote it in 1968. He said one thing, made a point, that the colonial powers never encouraged industrialization in their colonies. They blocked it. But there's one thing they did. The industrialization techniques were applied to the agricultural sector in the plantations. So you had this development that in the colonial powers, except America, other than America, in the colonial powers, the industry was very well developed and industrialized. And the agriculture was backward, like the potato farmers in Ireland and the others. Then in some of the colonies, like Sri Lanka, all the colonies, industry was non-existent. But in some of the colonies, part of the agriculture was very well developed, highly developed, unlike the agriculture in the mother country. Now that's the system they had, which we carried on. Now how are we applied today? I am not in the planting business or running RPCs, but we seem to be carrying the practices that we learned earlier times. But you will find in countries like North America, which are large farming, But also in countries like Netherlands, which have smaller blocks, a lot of new technology and management is being utilized, IT being utilized. The whole agro-business process from where you start till the end product. Now, I think we have to give attention to that. And that's why I find the management of some of the RPCs also at fault. They are looking at how to cut costs. Some of them forgot the long term. When the going was good, they took the money and it went to the parent company. And if the going is bad, they come and tell us you can't manage. That's another part of it, whether it be rubber or whether it be tea. That is a problem that they have. Now let's look at the product. What is the future of this product, rubber or tea, in another 10 years time, 15 years time? If you take rubber, a tea, can a high quality tea stand on its own? If we think it should stand on its own, how are we going to push it into the market? What's our promotion strategy? What are the other end products that will be there in another 10-15 years time? Other day by chance I was surfing through my iPad, I was on a web, and I came through. Tetley had done what the future demand for tea drinks will be by 2025. So here are the two. Your high quality teas and what is the future demand going to be. Then how do you work for it? It's not merely a question of blending. That of your tea being infused with certain types of medicine. So if you have a headache, you just take that tea. So in Parliament, there will be a big demand for that type of tea. And if you have aches and pains, it's another type of tea. So these are things. The same thing with rubber. Where do you need high quality rubber if you get the COP down? Coconut seems to be reviving on its own. Coconut drinks, coconut food. So we are just planting without looking at what the end product is. We look at the end product and then see how we can get the crop meaty. Our soil is, I think, another issue. We've been planting for 150 years. How do we nourish our soil? How do we do our soil test? This is very, very important. Not only us, in many countries, they find that soil issues that come up. Others are tackling it, we are not. Then, research. I think we are discussing it. I am very unhappy with the research institute, so is the minister and others. But give us a good model of a mix where the public and the private sectors. It is a public institution, but how do we get the industry involved in it? Not just a person from outside, but people who are in the industry, involved in the development of technology. After all, the TRI and the CRI are very famous even today. So we have to pump in more money, but it must be based on the market and the demand. It will be demand driven. And that's where the other sectors of the industry come in. And what are the other crops that we can grow? I am not saying that we have to stick to tea and not. You can buy in glass houses, other types of export agriculture. Why don't we look at it? Today after the central highway comes in, from places like Cat, it's just 1 hour to the airport. Or Kandy. With the Mattale airport, even the plantations in Ratnapura, Matale and parts of Bandaravilla become available for export agriculture. You have to think of. And finally the question of managers and training. You talked of the remuneration and conditions of work, but what about your training? How good is it? Where are the planters trained now? Right? Huh? Yeah, so you have been training NIPM. That's in Kaduwela. In the middle of the metropolis. Long ago there used to be a few estates. NIPM came there because Mr. MDH Jayawardena wanted it there. But you still think is NIPM the answer? You have to think of professional management. People go in, they are trained, they get a basic training, a certificate or diploma, go into the field, come back, later on upgrade themselves, slowly go in, even for a degree while you are working, it can be stretch degrees. Other type of certificates like accountants and others do. Just think of a new institution. Tied up to your institutes of technology and others. That again requires not merely the government, you're just dumping on the government what should be done by the industry. We are looking after the smallholders, we have given up our RPCs, but we have been told to train. NIPM can be restructured again into a management institution. Look at the army, take a lesson from them. Before the war, army just gave some basic training. But after 83, they realized to win the war, they have to improve on their quality of training. So they went in, and today they have a lot of highly competent officers, capable of not only taking part in war, but also in handling other work. Now this is the most neglected sector, and unless you put that correct, nothing else is. So these are the issues that the government is going into. And we'd like to have your views on it. Because we are going into the whole issue of RPCs, what is the new model it should be? And how are we going to do it? What is the future of the plantation crops? I just shared with you some of our thinking.